everyone, it's Katrina. Number 10. The Lost Island. Archaeologists in the Izmir province of Turkey have discovered an entire island they previously believed was lost for all of eternity. The ancient island happens to be home to a lost city where a famous battle took place in 406 BC. It was the Battle of Arginusae, fought between the Athenians and the Spartans 2,400 years ago. The discovery of the island itself is a little complicated. Archaeologists had to take a close look at the underground rock layers of a peninsula to figure out that it had been an island up until about 2,000 years ago. It was never connected to the mainland, but sediment gradually piled up until a bridge formed and the island turned into a peninsula. The biggest shock was when the experts found the ruins of the city of Cain, referred to in ancient sources. There are multiple historic texts that mention the city, especially when it comes to the war between Athens and Sparta. But it's always baffled researchers because the island didn't seem to exist. Now we know why the island was so hard to find. Because it's not an island anymore. Archaeologists didn't find much in the way of remains, just some scraps of pottery and ruined foundations. The Battle of Arginusae that was fought on the outskirts of the island was part of the Peloponnesian War. The fleet of Athenian ships smashed the Spartan fleet. It was such a decisive battle that the Spartans tried to press for peace. But the Athenians refused. No peace for the winner. Number 9. Mayan Sports. A fantastic piece of ancient Mayan history was recently discovered at the site of Chichen Itza in Mexico. Archaeologists found a commemorative disc carved from stone. The stone was carved with the images of 2 contestants who participated in a Maya sporting event. You can clearly see in the rough etchings both players wearing the traditional outfit of the Mayan ball game called pelota. This was the Mesoamerican version of basketball, but with deadly consequences. This is a very cool discovery because it might just be the oldest piece of sports memorabilia in human history. The inscription on the stone disc says the players would face off against each other in a ball game sometime in 894 AD. The players were obviously on opposing teams, with similar discs likely placed all over the city to get everyone amped up for the game. This was an advertising campaign to get people excited over what was potentially a huge sports rivalry. As for pelota, it had the same popularity in Maya society as soccer or American football. Like so many other ball games invented over the centuries, this one was played by trying to get a ball through a hole. The biggest difference was that the ball game involved human sacrifice. Some archaeologists have speculated it was the winners who were sacrificed. The Maya may have believed it was a great honor to win pelota, then lose their head. And now for number 8. But first, it's shout-out time! I want to give a big thank you to Dustin Traver and Amber for supporting this channel. Thanks, guys! Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already for more videos about incredible archaeological discoveries. Number 8. The Golden Mummy. Archaeologists have discovered a sealed mummy kept isolated in its stone sarcophagus for 4,300 years. Naturally, they couldn't wait to open it, disturb the mummy's eternal slumber, and risk unleashing a plague upon the world. The individual was a man named Hecashippus. He's one of the oldest non-royal mummies ever found in the country. There are plenty of ancient mummies, but most of the really old ones were part of the royal family. Hecashippus was a commoner, a man who was buried 50 feet at the bottom of a shaft south of Cairo in the Saqqara necropolis. He wasn't the only one found in the shaft either. There were 3 other tombs. One belonged to a man named Khnum Jedef, identified by inscriptions as a priest and supervisor. Then there was Meri, a senior palace official with the title of Secret Keeper. He was likely given special exemptions to perform religious rituals. And finally, the third man was a writer named Fetek, buried with a massive treasure of statues. Although these 4 individuals were not part of the royal lineage, they were presumably filthy rich. These were likely rich businessmen of the 25th to 22nd centuries BC who could afford to be buried in a splendid tomb. Hecashippus was even buried in a gold wrapper, covered in gold leaf. Number 7. The Jewish Curse. A lead scroll was rolled up, had a nail driven through it, and was then buried underneath the Hippodrome in the city of Antioch. This happened about 1600 years ago. Fast forward to 70 years ago, researchers from Princeton University discovered the bizarre lead scroll buried in the dust. The scroll, which was part of an ancient amulet, was believed to be a magical Greek or Latin relic. It was put away for safekeeping and forgotten about. But now experts have taken a new look at it. Thanks to all the knowledge we have today, scientists were able to decipher the message written on the lead scroll, something the original researchers couldn't do. Scientists were shocked to find an ancient Jewish curse. The amulet contained a curse written in Aramaic, almost definitely by a Jew, to bring misfortune to a chariot racer. The curse was more of a hex, placed on an opposition chariot racer in a malicious attempt to win a local race. We don't know if the curse writer was the one racing, or if they had a bet on an upcoming race. All we know is they were serious enough to bury a curse under the Hippodrome. Number 6. The Divine Procession. In Turkey, some people began to build a house. During the construction, it became evident they were building the house on top of the ruins of an ancient subterranean chamber. Rather than alert the authorities, the builders went down into the darkness themselves and began to excavate in hopes of finding treasure. But word got out that there was a discovery. Archaeologists arrived and the builders were apprehended. When researchers moved in to recover the site, they were shocked to discover an underground stone panel covered in artwork from 3,000 years ago. The stone panel was built during the expansion of Neo-Assyria. It dates back to around the 9th century BC. The inscriptions on the panel are Aramaic, and its carvings show Neo-Assyrian gods. For example, there's the goddess Atargatis, the great mother and companion of Hadad. Sin, the moon god wearing a crown of a crescent moon. Then there's the sun god Samas, who has a sun with wings on his head. The gods were drawn fantastically all over the walls of the underground chamber. Archaeologists believe the panel is showing a divine procession. However, the panel was never finished. Someone began to draw their images of the gods, only to give up and the whole place be abandoned. It was most likely due to conflict in the area, but it happened so long ago, nobody can really say with complete certainty. Number 5. Roasting snails. In an unbelievable discovery, scientists have found the remains of meals eaten by prehistoric hunters in a rock shelter used 225,000 years ago. That was only shortly after Homo sapiens evolved in Africa. Humans had yet to move out of Africa and were still loafing around on the continent. Scientists found the remains of gigantic snail shells that appear to have been a major source of sustenance for early humans. Scientists don't know when terrestrial mollusks became a part of our diet, but we do seem to have had a real hunger for them since our earliest beginnings. These snails were positively enormous. They were about the size of your hand, maybe even bigger. Scientists found their cracked and broken shells inside the Border Cave, an ancient rock shelter used by primitive hunters. Evidence found on the cavern floor shows how prehistoric people foraged for fruit, hunted small animals, and cooked plant stems into a crude stew. The analysis showed the mollusks were roasted on embers, then presumably eaten. Consuming these slimy creatures reached its peak between 160,000 and 70,000 years ago. Snails were a huge part of the human diet up until the Ice Age started to wane. Have you ever tried eating escargot? Let me know in the comments. Number 4. Gold in the city of David. An exceptional gold bead was found by a teenager in the city of David. The piece of jewelry was sifted from loose earth inside an ancient Roman structure on the pilgrimage road. It was made 1,600 years ago and only recently found by a young volunteer helping out with the archaeological dig. According to the Israel Antiquities Authority, the small bead of gold was made using a complex method of welding over a dozen granules of pure gold together. It is a fabulous example of goldsmithing in ancient Jerusalem. The team behind the discovery is Hillel Friedman. He was volunteering with the Archaeological Experience Project to uncover lost relics from the pilgrimage road. Dr. Amir Golani, an ancient jewelry expert working with the team, was floored. He said that through all his years, he's only ever found gold once or twice. You hear about lost treasure all the time, but finding a solid gold bead is a lot more rare than people think. It was a lot harder to make than people think as well. Researchers say that even with modern technology, creating a single bead of gold like this would be highly complex. Not anybody could do it. You would need the right equipment and proper training, and yet this was being done by goldsmiths in Jerusalem's Dark Ages. Number 3. The Lost Pyramids. Amateur archaeologist Angela Mikol made a shocking discovery recently in Egypt. Angela found what she claimed to be a pair of lost pyramids in the Egyptian desert. She didn't go out into the windswept dunes to search for the pyramids, but spent a decade studying satellite images on Google Earth. She claimed one of the new pyramids is 3 times bigger than the Great Pyramid of Giza. Angela identified the 2 pyramid sites 90 miles apart along the Nile Basin. The first one is right at the edge of the Nile in Upper Egypt near the city of Abu Situm. The other is to the north in the middle of essentially nowhere. Angela was able to identify what appears to be a triangular plateau a whopping 620 feet wide. If real, it would have been the biggest pyramid ever built. The issue is that nobody except Angela seems to accept the discovery. She says satellite images of the formation show a pyramid that has eroded over many thousands of years. It's roughly triangular. The top is flat like you would expect from a decayed pyramid, and the formation rises from the earth. When speaking with the press, Angela said she also discovered a trio of smaller pyramids nearby arranged in a diagonal alignment, just like the pyramids in Giza. Egyptologists aren't convinced, and without anyone willing to spend money to do an archaeological investigation at the proposed sites, we may never know if Angela really did find the biggest pyramid ever made. Do you believe Angela's claims? Let me know in the comments. Number 2. The Lost Star Catalog. Scholars have discovered a lost star map created by the famous Greek astronomer Hipparchus. It appears to be a fragment of the long-lost map, which could just be the earliest attempt to fully chart the night sky. Scholars found the ancient piece underneath the writing of a Christian manuscript. The map itself was drawn 2,000 years ago, but then at some point in the medieval era, Christian scribes tried to erase the map and use the parchment for making their own manuscript. The Christian text was created at St. Catherine's Monastery in Egypt. However, the text was given to the Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C. When researchers started to study it, they realized the writing was covering something much older, and that was when they found what appears to be a small segment of Hipparchus's map. The ancient Greek astronomer developed his map of the night sky sometime between 162 and 127 BC. He attempted to do something no living man had done before. He wanted to record the accurate positions of cosmic objects in the night sky. Victor Geisenberg, the lead researcher on the project, says the fragment of the chart should help reconstruct the original star map. Number 1. Colonial Maryland. Archaeologists in Maryland have found the skeleton of a teenage boy from 400 years ago. The adolescent may have been one of the first teenagers to voyage across the ocean to the New World. His skeleton shows that he was of European heritage and that he perished by the age of 16. His body was buried in a meadow at historic St. Mary's City, southeast of Washington, D.C. This was the original colonial capital of Maryland. The boy's burial is highly unusual. It appears to have been dumped haphazardly in his grave. His right leg was broken in 2 places, perhaps after death when he was stuffed into his grave. And yet the burial site doesn't offer any clues as to who the boy was. The best explanation the team of scientists can come up with is that he arrived in Maryland during the original wave of colonists in the 1630s. This was in the decades following the Mayflower's arrival in 1620. Travis Parno, the director of the archaeological site, says the teen didn't survive very long upon his arrival, though. The New World killed him. He may have come as an indentured servant, traveled across the ocean without his family to work. An indentured servant might sound bad, but it was these servants who became wildly wealthy and whose descendants still have that wealth. The servant traveled to the New World to work for a certain period of time and then was gifted free land. These workers often became the first big landowners in the United States, and many families kept that land for generations. But this poor guy didn't make it. Thanks for watching! Which of these amazing discoveries did you find the most interesting? Let me know in the comments below. Hit subscribe if you haven't already and come back soon. Bye!